Welcome, and in this video, I'll be showing you how you can build a low fidelity application that is excellent for demos while using GitHub Copilot to amplify your productivity in this journey. In this video, I won't be producing a production-ready application, but if you are interested in following along, everything I'll be showing here will only cost $10 to start with. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll notice that this is my first technology-related video. Let me know if you find this of value and what topics or content you would like me to see produce about technology in the future. This will be excellent for a wide range of users. If you have never written code, this will serve as a great introduction and show you the tools and approaches that software engineers might use in their day-to-day. If you are already a software engineer but early in your career, this will show you the tools to help you amplify your productivity in your day-to-day. If you are an advanced software engineer, this will show you how to leverage low fidelity prototypes to provide early and quick feedback from others. Yes, this video is long, so please use the YouTube chapters or timelines below in the video to navigate to the sections you are most interested in. To start, let's provide an overview of low fidelity user interfaces and why they are of value. Fundamentally, I encourage everyone to always embrace the opportunities to build things in a way where you minimize the level of upfront effort, cost, and time to ultimately get feedback from others. The worst thing you can do is invest a lot upfront towards perfecting building something only to find that it ended up receiving poor feedback or was doomed for failure. Reducing that feedback loop is invaluable. And here comes the value of frameworks like Python's Streamlit package. Python's Streamlit lets developers build a user interface without having to worry nor learn about HTML, CSS, or more robust front-end frameworks like React.js, AngularJS, or others. It instead provides an incredibly quick turnaround to get feedback from stakeholders or end users before you invest a lot of effort in hardening or productizing your solution. In this video, I'll be using this repository as a starting point. Next, I want to give an overview of GitHub Copilot. Here is where the AI portion comes into the picture. I'll be using GitHub Copilot to help me code what I ultimately want to build and accomplish. Using human language instead of being confined to only using a programming language. I believe this product is one of the most impactful productivity boosts I've come across in my life as a software engineer and as a manager. As you can see from what I'm showing behind me, GitHub Copilot helps people with code completion as you write code for it to guide you to finish it quicker. It helps you with chat. I'll be using this feature to help me go from idea and literally use it as a co-pilot or a partner. And 3, pull request summaries. I won't be showing this feature off in this video, but if you are a more experienced software engineer that reviews pull requests on behalf of their team, this is a game changer. As a software engineer, I find GitHub Copilot's pull request feature incredibly useful by taking my code and get assistance to make it cleaner and more optimized, all before presenting it to my team for their review. As a software engineering manager, this helps me identify high-level opportunities for my team of engineers to grow by having GitHub Copilot surface opportunities to optimize their contributions and then generate learning topics that I can provide to my team on a one-to-one basis for them to upskill on. If you are interested in going deeper into GitHub Copilot and all of its rich features, check out the YouTube channel above for a deeper Getting Started with GitHub Copilot video. Now let's talk a little bit about software engineering as a whole. In today's world, it's less on knowing how to get started and more about how to adequately articulate to Copilot your vision. This is incredibly powerful, but it still does require having some experience on knowing what to ask help with. This is why, although the CEO of NVIDIA claims that AI will result in no need to actually learn how to write a programming language, I believe that we will still require that deep expertise and education. However, the actual barrier of entry into becoming a software engineer will be reduced, and we will establish a much more level playing field with people that have a passion in building solutions using technology, all while leveraging AI. We will always need software engineers, software architects, and engineers as a whole to really provide a functional, reliable, and secure solution for people. In this video, how about we build a solution that helps a user generate a set of trivia questions, with each question being assigned a point reflecting difficulty based on the user's provided list of topics they are interested in. This application would be intended for users that want to organize a fun gathering with trivia. Perfect for trivia fanatics or bar/happy hour fanatics like myself. In the spirit of keeping things simple, but always thinking about security, I know I need to produce the following capabilities in this solution. First, I gotta simulate that the solution has security embedded by design and requires the user to log in. Second capability is I want to build a page on a website where the user can enter text that describes a list of trivia topics and then submit it so that the solution generates for each topic specified a list of questions and points based on that question's difficulty. Now that I know the capabilities, I do need to think about what dependencies my solution will rely on. Let's walk through some. Dependency 1 is authentication. To keep this prototype simple, I'll use a file managed way to manage beta users and not have to worry about creating a database of user profiles and a separate database for their credentials, or having to integrate with an existing identity provider service. Dependency number 2, trivia question and point generation. For this, I'll be using OpenAI's chatgpt, which will require an API key to interact with their API. By the way, API does stand for Application Protocol Interface, for those that may not be familiar with the term. And third dependency, data persistence. To keep things simple for now, I'll consider this a total future capability. And for now, assume that if the solution is restarted, that it won't retain a user's historical set of trivia topics, questions, point systems, and overall trivia session results. All right, how about let's get started and follow me along as I build the solution from the ground up. All right, if you are just joining me, earlier I covered about 2 tools I'll be using: Python Streamlit as a low fidelity application and GitHub Copilot to help me accomplish my vision quickly. In this portion, I'll be showing you how to get our environment set up. So what you're seeing here and what you saw earlier in the video above me was me installing and making sure that I have Visual Studio Code set up. Now, as you see me navigating through this, you'll see that I'm clicking on icons on the left. Those are nothing more than plugins and extensions. Visual Studio has a rich extensions ecosystem. The 2 that I'm going to be primarily using, first off, is GitHub Copilot that I just highlighted, and the second one is the one that I'll be showing here in this other view, which is dev containers. A dev container, and you can see there's the button to install it once I have Visual Studio Code installed locally. Now, in this page, I like to go through this because it tells you all the system requirements, the steps to install it, such as making sure that you have VSCode already installed, making sure that you have Docker installed, or some other alternative Docker option. And it also has instructions on how to do this, whether you're using Windows or Mac OS or a Linux OS. Now, I won't go into detail in this video around what Docker means, but just know it's a way to have portability of building a solution and a consistent development environment across people. Now, what you saw me enter there was Docker Desktop. As a Mac OS user, I find that Docker Desktop is a great and easy way to start managing my Docker environment. Over to GitHub Copilot. Earlier, I described what were the 3 primary capabilities that I love about Copilot. One is converting comments to code like you see displayed here. Incredibly powerful and useful to be able to communicate what you want to build and for Copilot to write the code for you. Another capability is the ability to generate unit tests once you have code already generated. Incredibly powerful as well. Create a SQL query, I haven't really had much of a need to use, but I can see the tremendous value because SQL query language is yet another very specific and specialized aspect. I highlighted there a link to where you can install GitHub Copilot for a 30-day free trial. Go ahead and check it out. Here is the GitHub project, Streamlit, and all of the different repositories that have to do with that project. The one I'm going to be using to get started is this Streamlit example. The dev container directory that I'm about to open up here, and along with opening the dev container file, is how we define our dev container. Notice how what this is doing is it's prescribing what is the environment that I need to be doing development. I'm going to be installing Python 3 according to this, and also installing a couple extensions in VSCode, MS Python Python and MS Python VSCode for Python. Another file that's important to show here is the requirements.txt. This outlines what are the Python dependencies we'll be installing out of the gate. So, tremendously great place to get started to develop our trivia solution. So, I'm going to go ahead and copy that URL and be able to clone it directly using VSCode. A great and seamless experience. You can see here, I click the button clone repository, say clone from URL, and then I provided the URL here. And now all I have to do here is specify which directory in my file system I want to save this project. So I'm going to be searching for my location and then click save. And then they'll ask me if I want to open it. So I go ahead and select yes on that. This is great security measures. If you don't trust where you're getting this thing, don't click yes, trust the authors. That way it'll be in a much more secure environment for doing development. I do trust this project, so I went ahead and said yes to it. Now, as we talked a little earlier, this dev container is meant to define what environment we're going to be developing in. And you can see here, VS Code automatically recognized the file and it asked me, do you want to open this in a container? So I went ahead and clicked yes on that. And what this is going to be doing behind the scenes, it's actually going to be creating a Docker image or a container image. It literally is going to be going out to the internet and downloading all of the dependencies that are prescribed in that dev container JSON file, and it's going to set up your environment for you. And again, that's the power of container images, portability and consistency. Here you can see a lot of different versions of what we're using and all of the text that's going to be telling us what it's doing behind the scenes. And again, a lot of this is just simply downloading dependencies, downloading packages, setting up the OS that we chose to use. And once it finishes completing, we'll have a ready to develop environment. Now we can see here that now it's installing the Python dependencies that we covered briefly in the requirements.txt file. So again, great way to not have to worry about manually setting up your Python environment and installing those dependencies. It looks here that we got an error though. No space left on that device. So this is what tells me that, okay, I had to free up some space. And then after I freed up space, I immediately was able to overcome that error. And now you can see here, I can run the Streamlit application. So a little bit rocky to start, but that's mainly just because I didn't have enough sufficient memory space in my environment. Now what's cool with VS Code, as you can see there, is as I ran the solution locally, it came up right in the same window on the right-hand side. Very convenient for us to do that. And in the bottom right, it's asking me if I want to install the Python extension. Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was a little weird because I expected these to be installed because I have them installed outside of my dev container. I have them installed globally. But after I took a look over here, I saw that it was missing. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. And you can see in both of the buttons there, it does show as installing. Okay, looks like Python is now installed. So what we can do next is continue our efforts. Okay, now I'm opening up the main file called Streamlit app.py. This is where we tell Streamlit what we want it to do, what we want it to display. Now, all of this was for the most part a demo and a part of the example. So I'm gonna go ahead and just delete the whole thing. And I'm gonna actually start typing out in a English readable manner what it is that I want to accomplish. And you can see there, what I outlined there was my goal of trying to actually establish some form of a secure logging mechanism. Now, I also noticed that GitHub Copilot chat was not installed. So I'm going to go ahead and also make sure to install that because that is my Copilot. If I am not an expert in Streamlit. I'm also not an expert in Python. Those are not my languages of strength. So being able to use Copilot to augment my background in software engineering is really going to be a productivity boost for us here. Okay, that is, now I'm showing GitHub Copilot on the left. Kind of switch back over to the file system, but I can now see based on those stars, when I click on the stars, it opens up this prompt where I can now ask Copilot what I want it to do. So you can see here, I asked it, I want to make sure the user is logged in, and it automatically generates the code for me. Now, as you can see, I like Copilot because it asks you, don't just accept it by default. Review the code. Make sure that you understand it. Make sure it's accurate. A lot of times, some of this may not be exactly what we want. For now, I'm going to go ahead and accept this, though. It's a good place for me to start. However, I'm noticing as I'm reading through this code that it's hard-coded. My username has to be admin. My password has to be password. That's not really what I want to accomplish here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to modify using Copilot, and I'm going to try to ask it changes. I actually want to be able to read from a file system a file that tells me which user profiles, usernames, and the respective passwords we are using, or in this case, their credentials. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my prompt here, submit it to GitHub Copilot, and it'll automatically change the code for me in real time here. Now I can see that it's trying to read a CSV file, and it's trying to compare the username and password. I'm still not happy with that, folks. I don't like automatically just reading files that way. So what I'm actually going to do now is tap into another AI tool in our toolkit. And that is, again, the power of today's generation, where you shouldn't just rely on one tool to accomplish something. Make sure that you investigate what other tools you have. And this other tool I'm going to be using is effectively Copilot here on the Bing browser. On Bing.com. Now, in here, this may produce different results because this is tapping right into the web results and the entire web. So I'm basically going to type in here exactly what I want. I'm going to give it some context first. I'm using Python Streamlit as a package. I want to generate code that configures Streamlit so that it is aware of a list of users and their respective password or credential. And I'm going to see what it comes back with. And you'll notice here, again, background in software engineer, I am asking that these passwords be hashed. If you are new to this industry, you've never done any software engineering, you'll be asking yourself, what in the ruddy hell is hashing? That is way more deeper and advanced topic for us to talk about outside of this video, but feel free to Google, to Bing it, to edge it. Ooh, that came out wrong. Feel free to research it on the web and see if, and get a little more familiar with it. But you can see once I send this request over to Copilot on Bing, it generates a plethora of information and it's too fast for me to keep up. So we're going to let this thing finish and then we're going to scroll up because it's so fast. It's really incredible. Okay, starting from the top, what I notice here is it's actually telling me a new package to install, Streamlit Authenticator. So first thing I'm going to do is, before I just simply take it for gospel, I'm going to look it up on that package to see if there's any security vulnerabilities. I like doing this just for about everything I do. If you're already on a software engineering team that has rigor in their security assessments, they may already be doing that automatically. But it's a good thing to get into the habit of always checking anyway. So it's a new package. So what I have to do is I got to go over to my requirements file and add it on there. So I'll go ahead and add that there. And next up, once I add it, I'm noticing that it's telling me how I can define my users here. It's really nifty. It's a basic file, a YAML file. And I'm probably you saw me go ahead and I'm kind of copying it. And now I'm reading through the rest of this to better understand how I make use of this YAML file. I'm really liking this login widget that I just saw earlier. So I'm probably going to be using that quite a bit. But first things first, I'm going to go ahead and create my users YAML file using that same snippet that I got from Copilot on Bing. So let's go ahead and create that. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste what I obtained from Copilot. Now, as I'm reviewing this here, I'm noticing that those passwords need to be replaced, and I'm noticing a cookie. Same thing, cookies are concepts I'm not going to be able to capture here, but I'm going to just leave those for now as is. And then I'm also noticing the pre-authorized emails. That probably means that those users don't have to authenticate. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. I don't need it. Okay, scrolling through the rest of this here, I'm going to go ahead and actually look up Streamlit Authenticator's documentation, because I found that Copilot hadn't left me with some questions on how I can start getting started. That is key here that I just highlighted. I'm happy to see that Streamlit Authenticator will automatically hash my plain text passwords for me. That's good to know. So I don't have to worry about hashing it on my end just for my demo's purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know what, I see I have 2 users. I have no use for 2 users right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and define only one user called John Smith, username J Smith, and that is my password, some secure password, exclamation mark. I promise you my passwords are way more complex than that, but that's the least complex one I could think of. Next up, I'm like this login widget. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and put it above here. I've got a couple import statements here, which I'm going to go ahead and move to keep organized at the top. Next up, I can see I'm opening up that config YAML file. I don't have that one level up, so I'm going to keep it in the same level. Rename it to what I named my file so that it matches what I used. And as we're reading through the rest, I see here we're passing our config over. It's telling me that stauth is not defined, so I just need to go ahead and define that. I can see it's not at the very top, so I do need to bring in that import. Off the top, I forgot what that syntax looks like, so I'm just going to come back here, and I see it right there. So I'm going to copy both of these, bring them down here, paste them, and now I see it's been populated. So now we're good to go. That's no longer highlighted in yellow. It's green. Green means go. Okay, now that I'm enabling authentication, I know that I need to actually render the login widget. So again, I'm reading through all of this here. I'm noticing that this here actually tells me the state of the status of authentication. So I'm actually going to go ahead and copy that and replace what we originally had. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste that in, and now you can see lines 40 and below probably aren't exactly what I need. And so I'll return back and address that here shortly. What I want to look for now is that logging widget. I kind of did that backwards. Sometimes that's how my mind works. I just kind of wander in a non-sequential direction. But okay, now we can see here, I'm just going to remove the previous code that was generated by GitHub Copilot. And I'm going to say that if the user is not authenticated, we need to provide them with that login widget in line 41. So I went ahead and ran the code here so that we can see what this looks like. And let's see what we get. We got a wonderful error message. Welcome to software engineering. We typically spend more time troubleshooting and debugging issues than we spend building stuff. Call me pessimistic, but I've been in the career and industry for over 10 years, so I can vouch for that. All right, so I know what this means. Again, if you were not a software engineer, you might need to research this. You could use Copilot to help it articulate to you how to fix this. And I have found in my experience that it does tend to be very helpful. But what I'm doing here is I'm going line by line and fixing, in this case, what ended up being a malformed reference of my variables found here, because here I was missing the key that it was looking for. So I went ahead and fixed that, proceeded, got this working. I logged in as you saw me just do. And now we can see welcome John Smith. So we are making progress. We are logged in. So now I go back to GitHub Copilot, and now I'm going to tell it actually what I want to do. I don't know Streamlit, y'all, and I could go and browse how to generate a text field, but why do that when I can just explain it to Copilot right here as I'm writing the code. So you can see here I'm explaining not just what I want to create in the user interface, but I'm also telling it how to store it in a variable. I'm also telling it what default text I want to use as well. And again, that's the power of this. What GitHub Copilot is going to be doing here is it's going to crawl through the web and essentially discover everything, all the context I'm providing in the instructions. You can see here I'm even telling it that I wanted to be able to convey to the user to use commas. to separate the various topics that we're going to be looking for them. And you can see perfectly exactly what I wanted. It tells you the help, it gives you the actual placeholder, and it stores it in the variable I want. Sweet. Okay, now that I have a list of topics, what do I want to do? I want to be able to create a connection now with OpenAI's chat APIs, ChatGPT in this case. And again, I could just need to research how to do that, but I'm just going to tell Copilot to do it for me and give me a starting place. Now, here it generated code in multiple locations in the file, which kind of threw me off at first. But what I'm showing here is the green section of it actually trying to establish that connection, as well as generating a chat response when given a message. Pretty useful stuff. It helps me kind of read through all the things that I could need to take into account. And then you can see here I'm getting user input. So it looked like it kind of changed my user input a little bit around, which is a bit of a bummer. I could always discard that. But at the top, I had to accept the OpenAI change because it did have to, it imported that library. And then I went ahead and accepted the rest of the change. So now OpenAI is included in this file. We will need to bring that into our requirements.txt file. And we have this ability to generate a chat response. Now, me personally, I'm going to move that method outside of my primary portion of the code because it is something that I determined that can be used repeatedly anywhere across my application if I wanted to. So I believe here I'm just giving it a message and I'm going to go ahead and create the request. So all that looks pretty good to me. As I'm thinking out loud, however, I want to make sure that, let's see, there's our user input. I'm actually going to delete that because it was repeated. And I'm going to replace user input with topics. And I want to move the actual OpenAI portion a little higher just to organize my variables and keep my business logic a little farther below. So there's our topics that we get from the user. Once we're given topics, I actually don't just want to be given a topic. I want the user to also submit a button. So I'm going to tell that, again, I don't know how to do that with Streamlit. So I'm just going to tell it, change the if statement so that it only gets executed when the user clicks on a button called generate. Okay, let's see what GitHub Copilot comes back with. Looks like all it does here is say if s button generate. I'm going to add that portion of topics at the top, remove that unnecessary nested if statement to keep my code clean. And now it looks like Copilot duplicated the same methods. So I'm just going to get rid of one of those. And now here we appear to be, now I'm gonna write a comment saying I actually need to take the topics and tell OpenAI and ChatGPT what it is that I wanted to do. Go ahead and check out the video up here for a list of prompt engineering best practices. There are a lot of research on how to formulate effective prompt engineering prompts. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be using some of the experience I've gained working in my career to formulate my own. Okay, so far here, let's see what we have. We've got the if statement as before. That user input, that's not going to be any useful to us, so I'm going to need to replace that with our own prompt creation. So I'm going to go ahead and go at the bottom and start writing out my prompt here. So I'm going to create a new method and say construct prompt. You kind of noticed it earlier. It's kind of trying to predict what I'm going to write. I love that feature, y'all. In the past, before Copilot, we had what we used to be called IntelliSense. Quite effective, same thing. It'd be type ahead, generation, recommendation. Copilot blows all of that out of the water. Absolutely incredible. Okay, time for me to write my prompt. This might take a little bit of time, folks, but hopefully you can see how I'm thinking about interacting with this AI here as we're writing through this. So first thing you'll notice is I'm giving ChatGPT, or in this case, what ChatGPT is a large language machine. I'm giving it some context on who I want them to represent. They are a trivia master, and I am tasking them to produce a set of questions when given a list of topics. And in a separate line, I'm telling it what are those topics. And again, I'm assuming this is going to be in a comma delimited list because that's what we asked the user to provide to us. And after this, by the way, what kind of throws me off here is you can see the highlighting of the text is a little different. That one's white, the other one's orange. So I'm just going to continue typing this out and then address that in here shortly. Okay, so for each topic you saw there, I kind of leveraged Copilot's recommendation by pressing tab. So it auto-populates on what I wanted. And I wanted to generate at least 10 questions. And then as I'm reading through some of this, I'm going to add a period at the end of line 61. And that seems to fix that for us. So now I need to describe to it what I want it to do with each question though. So let's take a look. You can see here for each question, no, I don't want it to just provide the answer, but I needed to do some more stuff. I typed in literally what Copilot asked. I must have not been paying attention to the screens, but Copilot would have nailed it there. But I also wanted to associate, like we said earlier, a point representing difficulty. Being specific with these type of AIs is much more impactful. So in addition to telling it that I needed to reflect the level of difficulty, I'm going to tell it that I needed to use the points, what type of pointing system. In this case, I wanted to use 100, 200, 300, 4, and 500. And I'm even going to tell it where the higher the number, the more complex it is. I probably didn't need to tell it that because large language machines, or in this case, OpenAI's ChatGPT, is smart enough to figure that out based on context and semantics. But don't make assumptions. The more specific you can be, the better. All right, looks like the text is back to being that color, so let's not sure why that's the case. Okay, looks like it just didn't like that extra space, or there must have been a character there somewhere, so went ahead and fixed that. Okay, now I gotta tell it what type of response structure I wanna get back. That is also very important. Now, because I'm building a web application, using JSON is quite simple is a really simple place to start with. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell it that I want a particular JSON format for the response here. And you can see here, Copilot automatically kind of figured out what I wanted to do, super cool. But I also needed to tell me which topic, right? Each answer response is gonna be a part of. So I'm gonna say topic name, and then I'm just gonna put in also, and here I'm actually telling it that I want it to structure all list of questions within a topic name key. It's just how in my mind, I find it to be more optimal to be able to process these responses. So once I group everything by topic name, I need an array of questions. An array is nothing more than a list of questions. So you can see here, I'm telling it that I need a list of questions. And automatically, I could just simply copy the lines 75 through 77, but I like to sometimes make my life difficult. But Copilot seems to know exactly what I want to do. So I start going to a new line, automatically tells me what I want. I say, oh, you know what I'm trying to accomplish here based on my pattern. So that's great. We're going to go ahead and just finish that up, close out our unnecessary new lines, and that's our construction prompt, folks. That is ultimately what I want to provide given the list of topics the user gets. So you can see here, I'm renaming my variable to prompt, making it equal to construct prompt, passing in a list of topics. Cool, it's starting to read like English, which is what good soft code should look like. It should be readable and consumable. I saw there that I had an error saying that construct prompt is not defined, and I asked Copilot, how can I fix this? And then it actually told me, it went a little quickly there, but it told me that I just need to define all these methods before I actually use them. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add them to the very top here. I'm sure there's better ways to import Python packages and modules, but I am not gonna get to that. This is a rapid demo, so we're just gonna move it at the top for now. Okay, next up, OpenAI and their API Key. So I gotta get that value. Now, I'm gonna ask Copilot by clicking those yellow icons that I don't like hard coding things, especially things that are sensitive like this. So I wanna populate using an environment variable. And I'm gonna tell what variable to use, in this case, OpenAI Key. And I'm gonna see what Copilot comes up with. And awesome, it automatically brought in the OS package from Python and automatically also started updating my code below. So I'm gonna go ahead and accept both of these changes because they look good to me. All right, well, that looks good. So now in theory, we gotta actually define a mechanism to bring in those files. So let me see if I can get Copilot to help with this. So I'm gonna highlight that portion and click on modify using Copilot. And I want to tell it now that I want to initialize the environment variable, right? From a file, right? So it's not that I just simply want to pull it in from the environment variable. I gotta pass that in. So perfect. It automatically generated the code I needed, which is .env.load.env. And it's gonna look for a file called .env. Awesome. I like to move those things to near the top though, because probably after my helper methods here. So let's put them right below this authenticator configuration that I'm setting up. And so now I'm loading my environment variables from .env. I'm noticing I also don't need these packages. They're showing up as highlighted as unused. And this is telling me that it can't find those. So I'm gonna go ahead and add them here. And then at some point I gotta reinstall all those packages, but at the very least I've added them to my requirements file. Okay, let's go ahead and add that .env file, right? So this is nothing more. Again, you could ask Copilot to generate for you if you're unsure how to start with that, but I'm quite familiar with them, and they're as simple as you put in the variable name followed by equal sign, and then in this case, your API key. Now, another best practice just to keep in mind as we're doing this rapidly is that we don't want to check in these credentials, and we want to make sure that we always have a sample.env that we can share out with others without ever compromising or risking us sharing our own credentials. So that's what .sample.env will be used for. And now because I've generated a file that I don't want to commit to the repository, I'm going to ask Copilot, please generate a .ignore file for me, something that takes in the common files that we need to ignore, that we see in industry. And so it looks like that's going to go ahead, and there it is. It generates something basic for me. Good place to start. I can already see that .env is included in one of those. So that is phenomenal. I'll go ahead and create that file, put it in here, and everything else I've over time recognized that those are pretty just standard things to ignore. So we'll keep them there. Okay, so now you can see in the left portion .env is grayed out. That means that we won't be able to check that in, and that's exactly what we want because that file will contain my API key once I get one. Okay, great. So looks like we're at a point now where I'll go ahead and try to refresh our page here, and looks like we got an error. And again, over time, I took the time here to analyze this error. It's talking about an on-terminated string literal. I'm gonna go ahead and bypass a lot of the troubleshooting I went through. Actually, no, I think this is worthwhile because, again, I wasn't sure what the error was. I'm not an expert in Python. I thought I had done this the right way to define this long string of text, but I didn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and use Bing Copilot to try to explain this for me because GitHub Copilot I found wasn't really just doing the trick. So Bing Copilot here tells me some guidance that I actually found to be quite useful. And it said, go ahead and just use the triple quotes at the beginning and at the end. So I went ahead and did that, clicked refresh. Now I'm getting a different error. Now it's telling me that it's too deeply nested. So now at this point I said, fuck it, right? So I said, I'm gonna create a file. I'm gonna use the file to serve as my prompt where I don't have to worry about nested values or anything like that. And so in order to do that, I will need to go ahead and clean this up so that I don't have those slash end of line characters. And I'm just gonna go ahead and treat this basically just as if it was a text file, which it is. It's a prompt.txt file. So I'm gonna go ahead and just continue cleaning some of this up here. Bear with me here. Okay, I'm pretty nitpicky, so I like my order of the JSON to be exact. And all that looks good. So I no longer need to pass that into here. But instead, what I do need to do is I got to read in from the file, and I forgot how to do it in Python. So once again, I love it. I open up Copilot and I tell it what I want it to do. I want to read my prompt.txt file. And I also want to replace that particular placeholder called curly bracket topics and curly bracket, just so that I can then inject it with the actual topics that the user provided. So again, I'm not just telling it to do one thing. I'm actually telling it to go ahead and do as many things as I need it to do to accomplish what I want in this method. All right, awesome. That looks pretty good. Reads in the prompt, and then the prompt replaces topics with the actual value topics. Awesome. That does exactly what I want it to do. So now, after a while, though, I started thinking to myself, I actually wanted to separate those responsibilities. I not only want to read the file and cache that prompt template, I then actually want to, that way I can make it more reusable. That's something you gain with experience. I'm sure Copilot would have caught this as well if I had asked it towards the end to optimize my code and make it a little cleaner. You want your methods to do one thing and one thing really well. Sure, you want to make them extensible as well, but the reality is this is such simple logic. Initializing the template, which is just reading the file, returning the file contents, and then having a construct prompt that takes in that template and injects the right values into it is a better way of defining the logic here. And it's also going to make it a lot easier to unit test once we get to that point. I'm not going to write unit tests in this video, folks. If y'all are interested in how I write unit tests, how I write, and how I use Copilot to generate my unit tests, just let me know in the comments below. Happy to write a video on that, to make a video on that. Now here, the reason I'm taking some time to write this prompt is because I know that with certain languages, I need to be cautious not to change the contents of the variable, thinking that it's going to create a new variable, when in reality it might be altering the values that I on it without me wanting to do that. So it went ahead and generated what I thought looked good initially, but was a little bit concerned about, because I can see here that it's basically saying prompt template.replace. I'm used to coming from an object-oriented programming world where I would see something like string.replace and then pass in a value with another variable. But and so even to this day, I felt like, okay, this could actually be overriding my prompt template and returning a prompt file as well. But we're going to go ahead and trust Copilot on this, and I'm reviewing my code. So we're initializing the prompt template, we're constructing the prompt, we're generating that response, and we are creating the OpenAI request here. I actually just realized in my flow here, I wasn't actually using those methods. So let's go ahead and add those methods. We take the prompt template. We then take the list of topics and we construct the prompt using the prompt template and the topics from the user. Okay, this looks good to me. I think we're at a point where we should probably go ahead and try running this now and seeing what breaks. Not to be a pessimist, it's part of the joy. We become software engineers because we like solving problems. We also like fixing things when they break. It's just one of those sadistic personalities, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Okay, what are the errors we're seeing here? Okay, this was an error with .env. I actually realized after trying to install this a couple times that .env was not the right package I needed to use. You can see here pip3 installed .env ended up returning the same error I saw before. So off the bat, I'm like, okay, I'm clearly not installing the right package. And that was provided by GitHub Copilot, right? Again, you gotta be careful not to just take all of these for granted. It's not gonna be perfect. It's just a productivity boost. So even here, I went over to my other AI Copilot on big.com, and off the bat, what I'm noticing here is telling me to use a different package called python.env. So I'm like, you know what? Like that feels right. So I'm going to go ahead and first test it on my terminal here, pip3 install. Booyah. All right, that fixed it. So out with .env, that thing's trash, install a new one. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do a command called pip3 freeze and output all the dependencies that this environment has right now and persist the static version of that, all using a requirements.txt file. And you can see that's exactly what this is. Now, in reality, we may want to let these versions be a little bit more flexible and get some later recent changes. So again, I'm not proposing that everyone use pip3 freeze to get started. That's typically a good place to pass those dependencies over to a vulnerability scanner, for example. But in this case, I was lazy. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be changing this package for long, so I'm just going to stick to pip3 freeze and use that. Okay, let's see what we get when opening up the application, and we get an error. Let's take a look. It seems that it's telling me that there's a repetition on temperature. So let's go ahead and fix that. I see it right there, line 41, that's just extra. Thank you, Copilot. I don't know why you produce an extra temperature, but that's okay. Easy to fix. All right, so we removed that extra temperature. Let's click rerun, and it's taken too long. So another quality of I don't want to speak for all software engineers. Me as a software engineer, patience is not my virtue. I don't have it. So I went ahead and clicked refresh instead of rerun. There we go. Asking me to log in again. So okay, let me go back over here. Get my JSmith credential and some secure password, which by the way, at this point, is starting to become a pain in the ass to write over and over. We'll see when I get tired and change that password to something shorter for now. Okay, it's saying unbound, can't access prompt file. I probably made an oopsie here. Let's see where we use prompt file. Well, prompt file is not defined in line 22. That doesn't exist. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it exactly what the name of the prompt file is, because it is static in this sample solution. So it's called prompt.txt. Okay, let's rerun this. This morning it was a little faster. Hey, there's our enter topics. Cool. We're still logged in. Sweet. Let's start typing in Pokemon, because who doesn't love Pokemon? Georgia Tech, go Jackets. And it's election season. U.S. presidential presidents. Let's kind of presidential election. A little relevant. And science, because go science. Oh, already an error. It's saying, it's telling me here that it doesn't support the way we're using OpenAI. Points me to a repo here. This was also generated by Copilot. Again, something as revolutionary as what OpenAI is doing with LLMs and chatgpt. It's constantly changing and evolving. So Copilot may have been trained on something that used to be relevant, which is now outdated. So I'm going to go ahead and just trust the error of what OpenAI produced. And I'm going to say OpenAI Python here just to see how I can initialize a connection with OpenAI. And there is nothing better than to go into the main documentation for the Python package we're using. Cool. Okay. This definitely looks a little different, right? So excellent. I'm already finding this valuable. I see that it's creating a client and it's passing configurations. So let's go ahead and find where in our code we have that. I see it here, line 35 and below. I'm just trying to do some comparison and figure out what I want to bring over. The client I might want to bring higher above in my file, but I definitely want to bring the entire call to create the request. So I'm going to say response equals this whole block of code. Okay, delete the old incorrect one, saying it's now telling me the client is likely not defined. And also I'm passing in a message. So in terms of the content, I'm actually just going to go ahead and put in message, because when I call this method, I'm going to already provide the prompt template and construction. I'm going to make sure I bring in from API and just replace that with that to match the documentation. And that's only going to allow me to create an instance of the client, which in the past I wasn't doing before. I was just simply passing it in as a static object. So back to here, I can see there it's creating a client object. So I'm going to go ahead and just pass in client right there in line 64. And that's going to be equal to the constructor OpenAI, and I'm passing in what looks to be the actual environment variable name that has the API key. Now it does say that this is the default one and it can be omitted. So hey, I'm a firm believer the less code is better code, quality code. So if it's already like that by default, and as long as I'm using OpenAI API Key, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that and just keep it as is with OpenAI. So now we've got the client near the top that we create only when we're logged in. Once we're logged in, we're going to pass that client over to generate chat response to be able to create the actual response. So I need to pass in the client in here as well, which is great because now I can actually, if I had multiple clients, if I want to use multiple LLMs, not just ChatGPT, but any other one like Llama from Facebook or some of the other ones, we could also go ahead and do that. Okay, we're gonna need to log in yet again. And I never remember the password, so I always have to pull up the name of the file to look up that value. Okay, and now it looks like we're getting a different error. It's saying that the key has not been set. Now we're at a good place to be able to actually get a key. Actually, that's why it was telling us, because we don't have that key. We only had a placeholder. So what I'm going to show y'all here is how to create a key. All it takes is for you to create an account with OpenAI. I went ahead and did this just on the fly here, so you can see just how easy it is. So I kind of tell a little bit about myself. I'm not going to divulge too many details though, because I like to live, believe it or not, a private life. There's API keys in the bottom left, and then I'm going to go ahead and it looks like I have to verify my phone number to be able to set up an API key. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, type in that in from my phone number, and then I'm going to give this a name. This is going to be owned only by me, so I will never share this with anyone, including you all. Sorry, folks, y'all are not going to be able to see the value here. It's secret. So I'm going to copy that value. And then once I have that, I'm going to go back over here into my own .env environment variable file, and I'm going to plop that in here. Aha, you thought I was going to forget to blur that out, didn't you? Well, I didn't. So still secure. Okay, we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and refresh this, see what we get now. Log in again. You know what's funny? I'm spending so much time doing this, and yet I am too lazy to disable logging for development, which is likely what I could be doing in here by re-adding that pre-authenticated or pre-authorized value that we stripped out before. Okay, still saying that I haven't passed in the key, but now I know I did. Okay, time to take a look at what's going on. So I noticed that that key name in my .env did not match the default one that it was expecting. So I went ahead and made that change, right? So again, it goes back to the default one was set to a specific value. I was using a different one. Mistakes were made. That's okay. We were able to rectify that on the fly. All right, let's go ahead and restart the entire solution here. All right, looks like we're in now. OpenAI must have created a successful connection. So let's type in some topics. This time around, I was thinking Olympics. Still go Georgia Tech. Still love Pokemon. I was actually watching Detective Pikachu when I was writing this, so that's probably why I'm thinking Pokemon. Different error. Looks like it's now telling me about a quota that I have that I've exceeded it. Well, I have $0 here, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my credit card information. I'm gonna put in 10 bucks just so I can start using this and provide y'all with a complete recorded video of this. No, I don't want them to automatically charge my card once I go through the $10. Careful with this, folks. Careful with this. Even though if you're doing this manually, it might not seem like a lot of money. The moment you actually start building a solution that does this, these costs add up, okay? You don't be surprised if you start seeing this into hundreds of dollars if you're actually building a solution. And then if you actually start providing a solution for a company or end users, you're looking at thousands, right? So it can be quite expensive depending on how heavily you're using the large language machine model. Okay. I digress. I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Sorry. We're back. Okay, back to the topics. We're going to type in poker this time. I love poker, by the way. Guilty as charged. Georgia Tech and Pokemon. All right, cool. You can see there I printed what numbers, like basically what prompt I send it to. You can see here are the topics, poker for each topic, basically the prompt template. And that's what we sent over to OpenAI. So now you can see the person that's cycling, swimming. It looks like they're doing a bunch of things. We're going to get a response back. And it got back an error saying chat completion object is not subscriptable. Whatever the hell that is, I actually don't know what it means. So we're going to go ahead and try to fix that. We're going to print chat response here and try to figure out why we got that error, and kind of separate out our print statements here. We run the solution. And again, more than likely what I did behind the scenes here is I probably actually Googled that error. But sometimes I actually like to just simply get this started, give it a try. It looks like the solution decided not to come up this time around, which is bizarre. So we're going to go ahead and open up our own browser here. All right, we're good to go. We're in. And so we're going to try and type in the same credentials here. Okay, so it's back to thinking. We're going to see what we get back here. And you can see it does take a little bit of time for OpenAI to get back to response. So that's just something we would need to make sure that we provide to the user a spinning icon or something so that, you know, they don't, no offense to Streamlit, but that running icon is not very easy to spot. You know, checking time here. This is taking its sweet time. Go back over here. Oh, looks like we just got a response. As soon as we switched over, we got the response. So sweet, y'all. Like, there it is. It ended up working this time around, which is great. So what I'm going to do now is I actually want to grab my response object in JSON here, and let's actually inspect it. I'm kind of curious to see how effective it did to generate questions and assign points. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the print statement from here, and we no longer need it. We actually ended up fixing the issue, and we're going to go over here. This is a JSON formatter website that I love using. It both validates as well as predefines JSON objects and lets you collapse and expand them, which I find useful. So yeah, you can see here, Olympics, Poker, Georgia Tech. It did what I wanted it to, and it provided some questions and points. I'm happy with that. This is nifty. So I'm going to go ahead and take that and store it now in a result variable, because now I don't want to just write it out like that. I'm going to ask Copilot, help me generate a visual in the form of a table, right? And I'm going to describe to it how I want it to be perceived. I believe in my description, you'll see me type here, I try to get fancy. I actually try to tell it to add some animation where if you click on the question, it'll flip it and tell you the answer with the point system associated with it. Spoiler alert, I don't think it was able to get that creative. We just got a standard table, but that's okay. For the demo, I think that will meet our needs here. So I'll go ahead and continue finishing describing how I want my visual to be created here. All right, so yeah, you can see there I'm describing what I wanted to do when I click on the question, and I wanted to show the answer and the points. So we're gonna go ahead, tell it to generate that. It generated a sample, looks to be JSON, but that's the last part is what I want. I want that table structure. So I'm gonna go ahead and I think delete most of that JSON object. That cleans up our code here. And yeah, looks like we're reading in JSON data, which obviously doesn't exist. So we're going to be reading in the result from OpenAI. And then looks like we're actually just going to go ahead and do some JSON manipulation here. How fun, how fun. So for each topic in that data, I want to provide the topic name. And then for each question in the topic's question format bucket, I want to start providing the question text, the answers, the points, and I'm going to append each row into the data table. So this actually reads well for me. It looks like it's doing what I want it. I'm just probably looking through this in greater clarity to make sure that I'm mapping my response format with the way I'm processing the response and creating a table entry here. Okay. So it looks like I'm going to go ahead and actually do some troubleshooting though. Before I make a call to OpenAI and have to wait all that time, What I'm actually going to be doing here is I'm going to create a static result object. The way you just saw me do that. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, so it's a long one. I've got 3 single colons. Got to make sure they're a new line so that it actually gets interpreted as a string. Man, this is a long one. I probably could have made it a little shorter, but that's okay. Okay, so there's our result object. Let's go ahead and rerun the solution. See what we get. And then we ran this test command, and now we're getting some errors here. We're saying string index must be an integer, not a string. And I can see here based on the print statements that I printed Pokemon and then we errored out. So Pokemon was a topic. So I know that it was probably the way I was referencing the topic. So now I'm actually saying for question and topic questions, but I'm passing it now in the data. So you can see here, I had to make some tweaks here. So I'm now saying, instead of just referencing the topic, I'm saying take data, reference the topic that we're in, and get me the questions. And that's the loop there. And now I'm going to add a print statement in line 257 to make sure that I'm able to print a question and that I'm referencing the question object the right way, which is in line 256. And so now I'm getting a different error here saying points. Points doesn't exist. Okay, well that's progress because it means it was able to get the question in line 258 and line 259 for answer. Points doesn't exist. It's actually called point, is what I told OpenAI to generate. So I fixed that, and look at that. There's a table. Table, y'all. Like, holy cow, this is amazing. Okay, now that we've tested that we can get a table generated, let's actually now bring back OpenAI's ChatGPT integration so that we can get new questions there for new topics and it's not just hard-coded. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit. That needs to be properly indented. Just how you keep your house clean. You want to keep your code clean. Everything's organized. We live in a society. Everything has syntax. Please, for the love of God, let's not get into tabs or spaces. Actually, fight it out. Let's brawl. For my software engineers watching this video, tabs or spaces, and why? Let me know your thoughts. Okay, on to more of the code here. So here now I'm removing some unused imports. Now that we've got the code working all the way through, I'm actually going to ask Copilot here. This is another great capability that I love about Copilot. And that is similar to the pull request feature I told you all about earlier. I like telling these Copilots, take a look through my code, make it cleaner, make it better, make it optimized. So we just improve it as a whole. But again, improving can mean a lot of things. I like to be specific when I'm talking to Copilots. So let's see what it comes back with. It's went ahead and made a lot of changes. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up, take a look at it, kept the import statements. I think there's a way I can actually see what it's doing, including what it deletes. But overall, I'm going to review this. I'm still constructing the prompt, generating a chat response. This one doesn't feel like it. Oh, I see a different thing there. I'm seeing a YAML safe load. I would do some research on what that actually did because I'm not familiar. And you can see I hovered over it to quickly read through it. I would recommend folks do the same. We're still doing our authenticators, our Streamlit authenticator approach, loading environment variables. Still checking to see. This looks different. If session get status, logout, template. It looks like it made some tweaks here. And then if we are not, it also says that if we fail to log in that the password was wrong. And then otherwise, so it actually optimized the last 3 portions of that code. I was able to catch there on the fly. That icon there, toggle changes you see above, is actually going to tell you exactly what code it removed, that's red, and what code it's adding. Again, definitely don't, just make sure you're reviewing every single change. If you don't understand the change, do a research on it, do a web browse on it. It's important. Okay, so that is our code optimized. I'm seeing some of these dependencies were not brought in, so our VSCode tells us how to import them. Easy peasy. Copilot failed to do that. Again, not perfect. That's okay. That's why we have VSCode as an IDE. It makes it really easy for us to bring those in. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh this, make sure that it's still working. There's our login page. All right, we are still jsmith. And then our short password, thank the stars. And what is the topic that we're gonna reach out for here? Netflix. I've been using Netflix all day as I've been writing the solution. Doesn't surprise me. What other topics? I was drinking scotch when I was writing this. That's also true. Can't remember which scotch, but Lagavulin 8 year is my go-to for anyone that cares to know. And cats, because cats are awesome. Let's remove dogs. The less topics, maybe the faster OpenAI gets us a response. So we went ahead, we clicked generate. We're gonna come here and we're just gonna take a look around. All right. And by the way, an error, JSON decode error. So I did some research on this and ultimately what happened here was I want to make sure that we were producing valid JSON. That typical error usually means something's wrong with the JSON format. It's being violated. So the first thing I started doing here was updating my prompt.txt file. Remove single quotes, put in double quotes. I actually don't know if that would make a difference. I can't remember if JSON has to be double or single quotes. I'll be honest with you, can't remember. And then 100 is just an integer, so that doesn't need double quotes. So the format looks good here, y'all. Like this looks good that I'm telling ChatGPT. Now, again, ChatGPT, along with any large language machine, LLM, you want to tell it. Sometimes repeating yourself helps. So I'm repeating at the end. It must be valid JSON format. And even then, I say, what's it? Well, I'm going to make sure that it knows that it means the response. So, okay, cool. Another thing I noticed that I cut out in this video was in print statements, I was noticing that ChatGPT was actually including what format the response was in. And it told me it was in JSON format. It was single quote, single quote, single quote, JSON at the beginning of the response. So here, I'm telling Copilot, help me strip that off. And again, I don't remember all the syntax for Python. Y'all, I've been coding in more languages than I can count in a single hand over 10 years. I forget them, right? It's fine. I know what I'm doing. I know how to write good code. Copilot helps me accomplish that because then I look at it and I'm like, yeah, no, that looks right. That's how I would do it. And there's other things that I love using it, like regular expressions. Oh my God, no one that I know that's sane likes writing regular expressions, likes decoding regular expressions and understanding what they're doing. Copilots help us do that. Cool, so now we're avoiding any trailing characters. Just like how there were trailing characters, there were also characters at the end that I realized that were causing issues. So same thing here. I'm telling it as soon as you get to that end curly bracket, remove and strip everything that follows after that. So I'm really now literally telling it, just give me the JSON object, ChatGPT. This looks right to me. I'm familiar with its syntax. Now that I look at it, I know what it's doing. It's basically grabbing everything, including the curly bracket. But because Python is not a zero offset, we have to add +1 to it to make sure that we go to the end here. So, okay, cool. So we are now generating the response here. Excellent. And let's finish for this to load. There's our login page. We'll be JSmith one last time, hopefully. There's the topics. I'm still thinking cats. I'm still drinking scotch. I didn't actually start drinking wine, but my roommate started drinking wine. So, but I love wine. So why did I type in war? I don't know, y'all. Not sure why I typed in war. Okay, we'll go ahead and submit all of that to ChatGPT. Sorry, my cat is freaking out. Speaking of cats. There's our table. We did it. Success. What is the average? Okay, interesting first question. What is the largest breed of the cat and what cat is known? So, I mean, there's some cool, interesting ones here. They're fun. And again, I can see here the point system. There's a $500 one that has an answer with a spelling that I've never heard of. There's some war questions here. So this looks good, y'all. Like this is exactly what I wanted to produce for my prototype. I could then give this to my end users, get some quick feedback. See what other features they might be really interested in capturing all while using this. So the last thing I like to do to wrap team is generate a README file with instructions on how I can empower other people to run the solution locally. That's important here. So you can see that's what I'm going to describe here. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and see what Copilot produces for us. And that typically is the best practice. You want to describe the structure, the purpose of your code, the structure of it, and also how someone can get up and running with it locally, as well as if you actually have instruction on how to deploy it on the cloud, whether that's Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, Heroku, you are going to want to have those instructions as well. Okay, so now I'm going to paste those instructions, the README that was generated, and just make some tweaks and improvements on this as we're going through it. So now I'm kind of reviewing through here, and it did a pretty good job writing the trivia generator portion. I'm going to need to edit some of the prerequisites here because it's kind of skipped the important things of, you need Docker, you need some other dependencies. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through this, hopefully show you the last version of this once I have it finalized. But once again, folks, if you found this enjoyable, if you want to learn more about me, the day in the life of Adrian as a software engineer, software manager, what technologies I'm reading up on, what best practices and engineering fundamentals I practice in my day-to-day, or any other topics on technology, please just drop them in the comments or the chat below. And also, if you are interested, again, I am both a software engineer, a DIY pro. I love talking finance. I love doing investments. So if you want to check out more topics around more content around any of those topics, please consider subscribing to my channel. Check out some of my other videos. And so, yeah, to conclude in terms of the README, you'll see here now I have a complete set of instructions. I talk about how to clone the repository, where to CD into it, how to open it up in a dev container, make sure that the Python dependencies are installed, populating your own .env file, getting your own OpenAI API key, and then how to navigate and opening that solution. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the content, and till next time.